Hi there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Welcome to What's Growing in April. So I try to do a video at the end of every month just showing you what I've been growing, especially when it's that indoor growing season, and there can be a lot happening and changing every month. So I'm going to go through all the plants that I have on my indoor plant shelf, and I'll give you a quick tour through the things that I actually have outside, and I'll give you a quick overview of the things that I'm hoping to get planted before I have to leave town, just so you can see kind of what else might have been growing by the end of the week if I'd been able to film this a bit later. I garden in Saskatchewan, Canada. That means I'm in growing zone 3B, which just means that it gets really cold here at winter. The more important part for gardening, for like vegetables and annual plants, is that I have about 110 days of frost-free days to grow in. So that's what I'm looking at when I'm planning what to get planted indoors versus what I'm going to be planting directly outside. As it sits, I'm at April 25th today, and my average last frost is about May 21st, May 24th, in that area. So I'm getting close. You know, I have about 4 weeks until my average last frost, and there's a lot happening here. We've had a really cold April, so some of the plants that I was planning to have planted outside haven't quite got there yet, but I'm still plugging away at getting things planted and growing so that when the time comes, I can have lots of things ready to get out. In my grow room here, it's about between 20 and 23 degrees most of the time, and my gauge here says it's 74% humidity in this room. So let's have a look at what's growing at the end of April. So up on this top tray, top shelf, I guess, starting over here is marigolds, and this is just standard, I think it's a Tagette marigold, just kind of your average marigold that I think you'd see at a lot of garden centers. They're just smaller, orangish, yellowish red kind of flowers on them. And if you look way in the back, you might even see a few trying to pop blossoms there. So these have been planted, I think, 3 weeks now. I'd have to check back, but I'm not sure. Then right here is my celery. It probably would like to be somewhere a little bit cooler. Actually, it looks like this entire tray is brassicas and celery. So I think we have one more pretty cold night outside, and then I'll probably be getting these out. I might even put them outside for a little bit today in my Coldframe and just start getting these hardened off. They really should have been out there doing that. But there's broccoli, cauliflower. There might be some Brussels sprouts in here. I'm pretty sure I have cabbage back in here somewhere. And then this celery. And I don't know how well you can see, but there's different stages of growth. So there's different plantings happening here with the brassicas. I try to plant them every couple of weeks so that I'll have a succession. Over here is some flowers. So in the very back is soapwort. And then I have a couple of trays of cleome that I don't think have actually popped any flowers up out of them. And then I have some globe amaranth right here. I'm really excited for these. I've never grown them before. There's a little bit of yarrow. And then I have a little bit of Love in a Mist. This is Delft Blue Love in a Mist, and they're not very big. I've never grown these before, so I have no idea what they're supposed to be looking like at this stage, but they were planted the same time as the amaranth and the yarrow. So hopefully they're going to take off and catch up here. And then this whole tray is impatiens. And these are just impatiens that I collect seed off the impatiens that I grow every year. And this is just a mixture of all the many varieties I've grown over the years. This was all from Safe Seed. This next shelf here is all peppers. So I don't even know how many pepper plants, dozens of pepper plants on this shelf. I have sweet peppers, mini peppers, hot peppers, lots of peppers, and they're very crowded on the shelf. Like I said, I had plans to have some of these other plants moved out of here by now. So the peppers aren't getting the space they need. They're not looking super healthy. They have aphids for some reason. So far the only thing in here that I know of that has aphids still. I've been just squishing them and doing my best to just stay on top of the aphid situation. But I really need some more room in this space here, get some of these plants out of here so that my peppers can be a little bit more spread out. I have pinched some of them back so they'll start to bush out a little bit. I do have a video about that, I believe, just a real quick one. So if I can find it, I'll put a link for it for you in this video in case you're interested. These are the last ones that germinated for me. These are shishito right here. So they're a little bit behind and a little stretching, trying to find the light around the rest because they are so crowded in here. But they're doing really well. I think this taller one here is a Sugar Rush Peach. Yeah. So, yeah, they're all at their own stage of life here and just waiting to get a little bit more space when some of the other plants move out. On the third shelf of plants from the top, I guess, I have a little bit of a mishmash of a lot of things here. So I have a few flowering kale. So these are decorative kale over here in these pink pots. I have some giant parsley. In the back of this tray here, I think I have 2 tomato plants, and I have 2 eggplants back there as well. This tray here is tomatoes. So if you caught my video where my tomatoes weren't germinating and weren't popping up for me, almost all of them have now. Some of them aren't looking the greatest. Like this here in this tray, you can see this tiny little tomato. Now this is one of the last ones to come up, but it's really not looking healthy. So my next job when I get a few minutes here is I need to take all of these tomatoes that are in the original soil that I planted in. I need to take them out, put them in fresh soil, because I really do think the soil is what was causing me the problems. And somehow they all did decide to, well, not all, somehow most of them did decide to germinate, but they're just not growing as robustly as they should have. Like this here was planted a week after this little one here. And look at the difference in growth. It's crazy. So this is just a different soil. And otherwise they've been growing the same way. I started this in a row tray, this larger one, or a channel tray, but that shouldn't matter. And I started this the way I would normally start my tomatoes, and they've always grown well for me. So I do think there's something just wrong with that soil mix I used. But anyway, so this whole tray is tomatoes over here. And this tray here has several tomatoes, kind of a couple across here and down this side. And then there's some Nicotiana. There's 2 6-packs, but they're kind of multi-stone 6-packs of Nicotiana. I have some Candy Tuft, some Alyssum, and some Bee's Friend. If I show you this tray here, there's sage in the back. I had planted rosemary in this tray with the sage. It has never come up or shown any sign of coming up. I have cumin that looks like it's dying out. I'm pretty sure cumin's supposed to be direct sown, but I just tried it inside and I just think it doesn't like being in these pots. This is oregano, I believe, or thyme. Winter thyme right here. This is Greek oregano right here, and for some reason a whole bunch came up in this corner. This cell is empty. There's one here and one here. Very odd. I'm going to say lemon balm. Yeah, lemon balm right here. Couple plants. But like 3 cells, nothing. So I don't know, very odd this year. This is mint, just some sort of general basic mint. And then this was supposed to be sweet basil. I've reseeded it. This was supposed to be Genovese basil. I've reseeded it. And regular thyme. The 2 basils, I am pretty sure, have the same soil as those tomatoes did. So I suspect that's probably what my problem is with those. So I'll just pick up some plants. It's not worth buying more seed and trying to do it. And the thyme, I have the winter thyme back there, so I think I'll just give up on this one. I'm not sure, because I don't think this might be actually the same soil. I'm not sure. So down here is my channel tray, and at the very back of it is just a few more of those tomatoes that I'd kind of done that 3rd sowing of tomatoes, if you caught that video just trying to get something. And I have lots of tomatoes now, so I'll be clearing that out. I just haven't gotten it done yet. I think I've gotten at least a couple out of every variety that came out that I planted there, potted up into something larger. So the rest are just a bonus, and they're actually just going to go in the compost. Then there's a couple of center rows, and those are just a few zinnias. A lot of my zinnias I will plant just direct sow out in the garden, but I always like to have a few plants that are just a little bit bigger and a little bit further ahead than the ones in my garden, just because I do have a short season. And in the front here is just where I had some like candy tuft, the alyssum, I can't remember what all, Nicotiana is what this is. So these were all started in this tray here, and I've plucked out what I wanted, and I just need to clean the rest out now. The ones that I've potted up are all growing well and doing well, and so the rest of these plants I think will just get composted. This tray here is what's left of my tomatoes, and I'm going to pull it out so you can see in a minute, but let's just keep going, and then I'll pull that tray out for you to have a look at it. Over here is at the very, very back, you might see that one little tuft way back there. And there's a few more in another pot back there. And what that is that's Jade Princess ornamental millet. So there's 4 pots potted with it back there. I think I only have germination in the 2 pots so far, but I just planted those less than a week ago, I believe. There's a couple more little tomato seedlings. These are my experiment with growing bananas, and so far nothing has happened, so I'm not sure I'm going to actually get anything to happen out of those. They're supposed to be sitting nice and moist in the dark. They are supposed to sprout within 4 weeks, and I think it's been 6 weeks or close to it now, and no sign of sprouting. So I pretty much think nothing's going to happen with those, but I'm just leaving them. We'll see. And then this tray over here, I can't even remember what all I have in here. The very back is Amobium, or Winged Everlasting. There's some Valkyrie yellow asters, some Obretia, and this is a white marigold here, really pretty marigold. So there's 3 rows of that I've just planted. The rest have been planted a little bit longer. Some of these plants are new to me. The Obretia, I've planted that exact variety before. It was just some free seed I received with a plant order 1 year. It's a nice little plant. The other varieties are all new to me this year, though I've grown some of them as different varieties of that type of plant. But okay, so let me get the thing of tomatoes out and you can have a look at that. So here's the last little bit of those tomatoes that I was having so much trouble with, and hopefully you can see that I have 13 pots left in here, and 6 of them haven't germinated yet. So out of those couple of trays of tomatoes that I thought weren't going to germinate at all, I only wound up with 6 trays. I think it was something like 30 pots, and I only wound up with 6 pots that didn't germinate. And some of these have just started to come up, so who knows, maybe they're still going to come up. I think out of all my varieties, the only one that I didn't wind up getting at least 1 plant out of was the I have JP written down here, but it's actually JB, Japanese Black Trifeli. I wrote these down wrong. That was old seed. So there's a chance that it was just old seed and couldn't handle these conditions that the rest of the plants are struggling with. But it's good because I had a few varieties here that I'd never grown before and I wanted to try. The Elizabeth, I wound up with lots of those. This chocolate cherry I wanted to try. This Ted's Pink Currant was a new little one I wanted to try. And there's another, the Petite Mono, I'm not sure how you say that. And I had a Candyland Red Currant Tomato, and lots have come up there. And this was an Amish paste, and I think I had a black creme or something that I went passed. Yeah, this was a black crim. But yeah, so there's several of the smaller tomatoes that I wanted to try, and they've started to come up now. So it looks like I'm going to wind up with a really good selection and a good amount of tomatoes, which a week ago I didn't think it was going to happen. So I'm happy about that. This is my final shelf on this this rack here, and I have some Rebecca. I have cherry brandy and prairie sun, I believe. Yeah. So that's this whole tray here is those two varieties of Rebecca. So I'll be getting these outside soon in my cold frame. They should be fine to be getting hardened off outside, I think, anytime now. After I have like one more really cold heavy frost night, and then I think they should be fine to get hardened off a little bit. Then I have some Bright Eyes chrysanthemums. That's these kind of frilly looking leafed plants here. These are Cleome. So I wound up with 3 plants of Cleome. I have one here, and there's one really tiny little one here. So I tried to grow Cleome last year, but I don't think it ever actually grew for me because I do not remember having plants like this, but that's what those are. So mostly chrysanthemum in this tray, and then the 3 Cleome. And again, I think most of these, I need to check on the Cleome, I'm not sure about it, but the chrysanthemum I'm sure could be going out and getting hardened off pretty soon here too. The Cleome, I just have to check on. I have a few pots of cannas that had started to sprout. This one there's a weed in it. This potting soil is just awful this year for weeds. So there's some that have started to sprout here that I've just put under these lights. And then I have, I don't think you can see in here, but I have some vermiculite with some begonias. They were starting to sprout in their cold storage. And I just haven't had a lot of time to just deal with these yet. So I've just set them in here like this with some damp vermiculite to try and get them to root up and do what they need to do. But I think I need to get some soil on them. They don't seem to be, they're sprouting, but they're not growing roots. Now, begonias do take a while, so they could just be doing what they should be doing, and I'm being impatient with them. And then the last tray that I have here is Sapoglossus. This is just a really nice little annual plant. I like it. Painted tongue, I think, is a common name for it. And I said I wasn't going to grow it this year. Last year's the first year I've actually grown it in my yard from seed on my own here. And it was just covered in aphids. But last year was a bad year for aphids. And so I decided I would give it a go again. And I have lots of nice healthy plants here. And they're just such nice flowers. And I thought if nothing else, they'll just attract the aphids away from some of the other plants that I want. So that's what I'm doing with those. Back in the far corner there, I do have a few cannas, and it looks like one's sprouting up there, so I need to get it under the lights too. There's a bag of gladiolus waiting for me to plant them. I'll actually just put those directly in the ground. I was planning to do that this week, but because of the cold, I think that'll be next week. They can go out before your average last frost. Once the soil can be worked, you can pop those in the ground. So I did that last year, it worked well. That's what I'm gonna do again this year. I do have a few more plants just waiting for me to plant them. I have this amaranth somewhere here. I don't remember showing it to you, but I have this amaranth growing somewhere here. And then I need to get my Nemophila, I don't know how you say that. Get this planted. I'm gonna plant up a few poppies inside. Most of these I'll just direct sow outside. So I'm gonna succession sow a little bit more Rebecca. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but I'm gonna do it anyways. And then I have some Cosmos, and I'm gonna plant a few inside, and then I'll just direct sow the rest. That just gives me a few plants that are a little bit more mature. Like I said, I have a short growing season, so I like to have a few plants that are just a little bit further ahead than the direct sown. Okay, let's go to my living room. So in front of this nice warm sunny window, I have several varieties of dahlias potted up to pre-sprout, and you see some are doing really well and just going like crazy already. You might be able to hear the dog. He's sitting here in the sunbeam. So I have a few, and then some you might not be able to tell, but there's a little sprout here. There's some sprouts on that there. I'm not sure if any more are sprouted. There's one in the larger pot, has a sprout on it. So those are coming along quite nicely. So lots of dahlias that I should be able to have to plant out once the weather warms up. Those are definitely frost tender and won't be going out for at least a month. I finally managed to plant the pansies and snapdragons and daffodils and tulips that I'd planned to plant out earlier this month. So I have a pot there, and I have a couple of pots there. They've had a rough April because I had grown them to be ready to plant out at the beginning of April, and then it was just way colder than normal, so they had to wait, and they weren't enjoying the in and out of trying to fight with the cold weather. So, but I think they'll come. The pansies for sure are going to rebound and do well, and I think the daffodils, the ones that haven't flowered already, will be all right. Some of the tulips weren't looking too healthy, and some of the snapdragons weren't, but I have a few snapdragons that are looking nice, so I think they'll be all right. And then my Coldframe. I had one little pot of tulips that I didn't actually put in those front pots. It's starting to sprout there. Needs some water, so need to deal with those. They can come with us to the Coldframe. Okay, so here we are out in the Coldframe. So it's our last little stop on the tour of what's growing at the end of April. And I've actually had you guys in here quite a bit in the last couple of videos. So I'm just going to go through this really quick because I think this video is probably getting pretty long, but I know some of you don't watch all of my videos, so you want to know what I have out here. Just to give you a little bit of background, we've been having like -8 Celsius nights and very cloudy weather until yesterday. The sun came out and today it's out, and now we're supposed to be starting to warm up overnight. But yeah, in the last 2 weeks, I think most of our days and nights have been right around that -2 to maybe 2 degrees. And then we've, like I said, had some extremes of like -8, and the daytime highs really until, what is it right now? Today's probably the warmest day. It's 8 degrees outside right now, in the middle of the afternoon. So these plants have had some pretty cold conditions, and I have a pretty heavy duty frost cloth that's been going over them at night and even during the day some days. Some of these plants have been out through a lot of that. Some of these plants just came out in the last few days. It really just depends kind of on my mood and what the weather's been doing, and things like I had some plants in my son's room and he's coming home from university, so I needed to get those out of there, though they needed somewhere to live. So they're out here a little bit cooler weather than they probably wanted, but they'll take it. So if you look in the back, I have way over on that side, you can see some kind of wispy things. That's bunny-tails grass. And then I think everything else in those trays is foxgloves. Some are doing well, some not so well. In the middle tray is mostly petunias. The last 3 rows that are a little bit smaller plants towards the back there are Calibrachoa from Saved Seed. Actually, and the petunias are all my own Saved Seed as well. This tray is petunias. I have, what do I have in here? Shockwave purple and more Saved Seed. So it's about half and half on that tray. And then I have a tray here. This is oat grass or plant grass. You might see it, the seeds called in the stores. And then I have some, what do I have here? Cauliflower, broccoli, kohlrabi, more kohlrabi, more plant grass. There's some tiny little petunias back there. I don't even know if you can see them. And there's some dianthus. If you can see it over the grass there, that's all dianthus through there. Then I have a tray of petunias. These are more White Storm from, well, they're from Safe Seed, from White Storm petunias. I don't know what they're going to wind up as. And these 3 rows here are blue Easy Wave petunias. So I have a couple of snapdragons here that are, I just moved up. The rest of the tray had damping off, so that's that. Some onions. I have ranunculus, a little bit of cabbage and Brussels sprouts, a few little pots of more snapdragons, more ranunculus. This is a later sowing. That's those tulips I just brought out. And one final tray of petunias. So this is Island Waterfall mix. That's all I have growing for April. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.